Hello people, welcome to another video. This one is going to be about important considerations that every expatriate living and working in Saudi Arabia should consider before obtaining a premium residency under the special talent stream. There are many other ways, for example, investor residency or entrepreneur residency or via real estate investment. But then, I'll just focus on this one and the risk associated with this one. So first of all, it is not a permanent residency. As we know in Europe or US, it's a premium residency, which in my opinion, just to explain in simple words, is an upgraded version of the typical Iqama. And it comes with some benefits like you will not be paying family tax or dependent fee. You are free to move in and out of Saudi Arabia, and you can work in professions which are reserved for Saudi citizens and so on. And then after successfully holding the premium residency for 5 years and meeting all the conditions, then the holder has a right to apply for permanent residency, which eventually removes some of the restrictions that are applicable to premium residency. But that's not the topic of this video. I just want to pave some grounds before I come to the main point. So premium residency is valid for 5 years, as we know. Just remember my words, this 5 years is theoretical. Practically, it's a different story. So that's the main issue of my video. So first of all, even if you're given the premium residency, which is valid for 5 years, but the holder is required to meet the conditions all the times. So if any point of time this guy or girl fails to meet the conditions, then he has a grace period to fix the issue. Otherwise, the premium residency will be cancelled. So this 5 years is basically a number, nothing more. One of the main challenge actually that causes the professionals that poses a risk to the professional is that the ability to remain employed in the approved organizations. As you might know, or you can Google, that if you're working for any company, just any company, you are not eligible to apply for premium residency. You can only apply if you are working for whitelisted or specifically approved companies. So if you lose a job in one approved company, then the second job should also be in the approved company. Otherwise, you will lose your residency regardless of this 5 years. So you get what I'm trying to say. So let's look at an example so it might be easier to understand. So let's say somebody got premium residency for 5 years. He's very happy and celebrating, but then suddenly his HR calls him and says that, guys, guy, come on, your job is terminated, and you have only 60 days or 90 days as a notice period that we are serving you. In this time, you need to find a job and move on. Our contract is done. So we have something called Kiva platform, which is an employer and employee relationship management platform, which has all the kind of job contract and whatnot is there. So the HR team will trigger the notice period in that system. And then the candidate only has 60 to 90 days, depends whatever agreed with HR, to find a new job, a company, and move on. Now, in ideal situation, if somebody got 5 years and then he found a better job in an approved employer in the same field for a higher salary or at least a minimum salary, he can move easily. That's a very ideal situation. But for people who lose their job, then that's where the issue lies. So he has notice period to find a job, and if he fails to find a job in an approved employer, then from PR team they will call him and they will inform him that your grace period of 60 days, the second day here, has started, and you must find a job in that period in an approved employer, or your PR will be cancelled, which means that the person is leaving Saudi Arabia. That's the major issue here. In theory, or not theory actually, in the regulations, they are saying that the holder has a right to apply for extension in the grace period, but that is subject to approval and review. So you'll have to provide them reasons, that's why you want an extension. They will consider and then approve accordingly if they think it is necessary. But also there's a catch that the total number of extension that has been given to somebody should not exceed 180 days. In a period of 5 years. So let's say this guy is very unfortunate. He lost the job here. He could not find a job here in this number of days. Then also his grace period expired. And then he applied for extension. He got an extension for 60 days. And then let's say he found a job time goes on, and here also he lost a job. The cycle repeats, and then he again applies for extension. So basically what will happen, they will look at total number of extension taken in 5 years. If it is like 180 days or more, or like not more actually, if it is like it has reached 180 days, then they will not allow any more extension, and this means the person has to leave Saudi Arabia for sure. So I hope that the risk is clear. You guys maybe can see the risk here. Now, what is the remedy? The remedy is that you find a job in an approved employer and move on. That's an ideal situation. If not, then let me give you an example. So let's say the guy lost his job in an approved employer, and then he was able to find a job in an organization which is not approved. I mean, it's just any company in Saudi Arabia. That's not good enough for him to retain premium residency. So it means that he will have to leave Saudi Arabia and come back on that company's Iqama, I mean this company's Iqama, which is not approved, on that Iqama as a new person. So this might sound easy for youngsters, maybe for bachelors, for people having small kids, but when you have been living in the region for a decade or more, your kids are born and brought up here, it's not easy to wind up the house, go back to your home country, and then come back on new Iqama, then re-establish the base. Sounds easy, but it's not. So that's the major risk here. And then also there is no pathway to downgrade premium residency back to Iqama. So for example, let's say you were here for 12 years or 15 years working on an Iqama, and then you got a job in an approved employer. Their HR encouraged you to apply for premium residency, and you applied and you got it. And then suddenly after 2 years they tell you, thank you, goodbye, just leave us. And you cannot find a job, so you cannot go back to your Iqama as you were living like 15 years or so. So that's also a pitfall, I think. So just keep this risk in mind before you apply for premium residency. Now, other considerations that people should keep in mind, that if the principal holder dies, then the residency of the dependents is also cancelled. So this 5 years, as I said, is meaningless. So if I die, for example, my family has to leave Saudi Arabia, regardless of the validity. Also, my kids, or basically dependents, in essence kids actually, they will lose the residency once they become 25 years of age. So this one is a bit better than the Iqama. In Iqama, if you have a daughter who is about 21 years of age, you can sponsor until 21 years. After that, you have to prove that she's a student maybe, or she's not married, or maybe she is financially dependent on you, and then only in that circumstances her Iqama will be renewed as an exception. For son, it's a bit difficult and tricky. The maximum age for son to be under your sponsorship on a regular Iqama is 18 years. After that, it's a bit difficult. Again, you have to provide documentation and beg and apply and whatnot to get his Iqama renewed. In this case, it's a bit lenient. It's 25 years of age. Which is fair enough actually. By this age, your kid should be able to find a job or move out somewhere else. Now, finding a job in Saudi Arabia as a expat kid is very difficult. For freshmen, it's very, very difficult to find a job unless it's some very, very small company where no Saudi wants to work. So those are usually abusive employers. So I have known some Desi kids, Desi I mean Indian and Pakistani kids, who studied here. They were born, brought up here in Saudi Arabia. They studied in Saudi universities, but they struggled to get internships because major corporations and even medium-sized companies, they don't take expatriate kids as internees or trainees. So, when I look at this, I mean, I don't see a point of this whole debacle about premium residency. Now, quickly, you can pause the video and read the whole thing, but I will just talk about this quickly. That this is one of the citations from the website, terms and condition. They mention that on what circumstances your premium residency will be cancelled, and the relevant clause here is the failure to maintain an employment contract in the priority field, or basically skill, with an approved entity by the center. I mean here PRC, the Premium Residency Center. So you need to maintain minimum salary and the job in the approved entity. And the moment you fail to do so, your residency will be cancelled regardless of the tenure, remaining validity, I mean, okay. And by the way, I have known 2 Pakistanis and 1 Indian guy who are suffering from this. 2 left already, and third will be going maybe in a week or so, unfortunately. So that's the threat, is the risk is real, okay. And then also one of the important thing is the premium residency. Yeah, that's about the renewal. So even at the time of renewal, you are supposed to have a job. So for example, let's say you applied for residency, it was valid for 5 years, and now you are standing in 4th year and 10th month, and your HR terminates your contract. So practically you're jobless. So that's relevant now here, 7.1.2, that at the time of renewal, you must be at the job. And if there's, or if you cannot find a job, then you will go to a grace period here. And even in the grace period, you cannot find a job, then it means that your residency will be cancelled, which means you are leaving Saudi Arabia. And then there are more details that you should read, at least relevant clause, at the PR website, pr.gov.sa, services terms, and just read the fine print yourself. Now, in my opinion, lastly, it's a good program, but it needs some refinements. This is my opinion, okay? So for example, there has to be a pathway for downgrading back to Ikama. Excuse me. And also, in my opinion, regular Ikama gives you somewhat freedom. I mean, freedom in a sense that, of course, you're paying taxes on the family. You are not free to move from Saudi Arabia. You need something called exit and re-entry visa. But then it gives you freedom in a sense that you can, if you lose your job, and unfortunately after a few months you are unable to find a job, then you can join just any company that gives you, a job where you can maintain your life or sustenance for a while. Like a supervisor, just you're working as a director, if you find a job as a manager or as an assistant manager or supervisor, at least, you have a job. But, that's possible only in Ikama. But for premium residency, no, it doesn't work. You have to have an approved employer, have to have a minimum salary, and it should be in the same, field, and so on. All right. So this is a critical issue for Desi people living in Saudi Arabia for several decades. I have been in the region, by the way, for 2 decades. So, I mean, I would prefer to, stay on Ikama than on so-called premium residency. So yeah, maybe it's not the cup of tea for everyone, but maybe some youngsters, some young professionals might be interested to go for it, so they can go for it. But for old people like me, I think it's better to wait and see. So lastly, thanks for watching the video, and I hope it provides you some insight on the Saudi premium residency. Have a good day. Bye.